Hello, dear friends. More global challenges are on the horizon, but we don't know what is going to happen or when it will happen. We can only look for signs, interpret signals, and summarize different opinions in what is becoming a very tiring mental gymnastics. This war is giving me a lot of war. There will be an end of time, with a new heaven and a new earth, but we don't know the day or the hour. Opinion piece. Beware of the Ides of March. These are days of good omens. They run from March 15th to March 25th. Deadline to paying off debts. Good luck days with a bad reputation. Love will be the winner at last, but it will take time. Financially, we are on a roller coaster ride. More global economic challenges are on the horizon. What will happen next is an unknown quantity. Ukraine's ceasefire talks fail. Thousands of Russians detained for protesting against the war. Russia and China have just created their new world order. Ukraine crisis impacts on food prices. UN General Assembly set to isolate Russia. Russia raises its interest rates to 20% to curb inflation. Turkey closes its straits for warships to pass through. If Russia, China and Iran were to cut off oil, chaos would ensue. Shift Bank increases risk of bank runs. Swift expulsion benefits China, hurts the West. EU to urgently connect its power grid with that of Ukraine. Russia closes its airspace for Spain, Germany, Italy and France. Spain postulates itself as a gas gateway to Europe in the face of the crisis. Let's start. Beware of the Ides of March when all debts must be settled. For the Romans, the Ides of March meant the 15th of the month and was actually the deadline for settling their debts. The Ides of March was considered to be the last date on which debt should be settled. It was also a time for celebrations, both religious and to see the old year pass and the Roman New Year enter. According to the ancient Roman calendar, the Ides of March were especially dates that always fell on the 15th of the month of March, called Martius in ancient Rome, and were considered very auspicious days whose influence extended until the 25th of that month. However, people usually feared them because of the assassination of Caesar. For the Romans, the Ides of March meant the 15th of the month and was actually the deadline for paying off their debts. For many small businesses, a little after the Ides, more specifically March 20th, is an imminent due date for monthly bills. And for some time, when the knots in your stomach have no qualms about reminding you of your brutal financial realities. Economically, we are on a roller coaster. Some parts of our economy are going crazy. Other parts are lazy and need a defibrillator. We are in a K-shaped recovery. Unemployment is at 3.2% in the US. Inflation is at 5.9%. Prices are rising across the board, but wages are not keeping up. $100 or euros at the supermarket doesn't go a long way these days. Tradition. The Ides of March in the Roman calendar corresponded to the 15th day of the month of Matthews. The Ides were days of good omens that took place on the 15th of March, May, July, and October, and on the 13th of the rest of the months of the year. Although Matthews, a month consecrated to the god Mars, was the third month of the Julian calendar, it was the first month of the year in the older Roman calendar. The feast days observed by the Romans since the first of the Ides reflect their origin as New Year celebrations. The Ides of March would have been the days corresponding to the first full moon of the Roman New Year in the older calendars. These Ides of March were the most famous of all the Ides for being marked by several religious observances and for having occurred on that day the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 before Christ, considered a turning point in the history of ancient Rome, and marking the transition from the historical period known as the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. According to the Greek writer Plutarch, Caesar had been warned of the danger, but had dismissed the warning. What is even more extraordinary is that the seer had warned him on the grave danger that threatened him on the Ides of March, and on his way to detained that day, Julius Caesar met the seer and laughingly told him, in quotes, "The Ides of March have already arrived," to which the seer replied sympathetically, "Yes, but they are not yet over." How wise. Although the Roman calendar was replaced by the modern days of the week around the 3rd century, the Ides continue to be used colloquially as a reference for centuries to come. Shakespeare, in his play Julius Caesar in 1599, quoted them when he wrote the famous line, "Beware the Ides of March." Reset news. First, a big crash is coming, the collapse of the markets. Second, experts warned that the Fed will not stop the stock market crash. Third, on Tuesday, February 22nd, all banks were required to comply with Basel III rules. Fourth, the SWIFT system would be permanently shut down in March 2022. Fifth, Russian banks would be part of the new global financial system backed by gold and assets. Sixth, millions of people are already pulling their money out of stock markets around the world. Seventh, sanctions created a shockwave in banking systems. 8. Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, refuses to block Russian accounts. 9. Daniel Stulin talks about global bankruptcy and restart in his latest book, World Projects at War 2045. 10th. Benjamin Fulford says humanity is breaking free. In Asia, an agreement was reached to unify Taiwan and China and form a friendly alliance with Japan, a unified Korea, and ASEAN, say Dragon family sources. When it is all over, there will be a jubilee, world peace, and the beginning of a new golden age, coalition sources promise. Ukraine. First, Russia takes control of Ukraine's key Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Second, UN General Assembly set to isolate Russia. The 193-member Assembly began meeting Monday on the crisis in Ukraine ahead of a vote this week to isolate Russia. Third, Russia closes its airspace for Spain, Germany, Italy, France, and dozens of other countries. Spain. First, Spain proposes to close its ports to Russian oligarchs, according to the foreign minister. Second, Spain will send more troops to the border with Russia. Third, inflation soars in Spain to 7.4% in February, its highest level in 33 years. Fourth, the price of gas in Europe rises 35%. 5. Spain is postulated as the gateway for African gas to Europe. Reactions. First, Turkey closes its straits to the passage of warships. Second, some 250,000 people demonstrate in Cologne for peace in Ukraine. Third, thousands of Russians are arrested for protesting against the war. Fourth, Russia-Ukraine ceasefire talks end without agreement. Markets. First, by excluding Russia from SWIFT, the West would lose its financial supremacy to China. Second, the expulsion of Russian banks from SWIFT triggers shares in the Chinese analog of the interbank payment system. The media fears that the sanctions will only strengthen the alliance between Russia and China, endangering the dollar as the international reserve currency. Third, dollar rises. The dollar soared while the ruble plunged to an all-time low. Fourth, falling ruble sends Russians rushing to withdraw their cash from banks. Fifth, Brent crude rises 6%. Brent crude surpassed $104 a barrel after Western nations implement more sanctions to isolate Russia. Sixth, gold marks its best month since May. The price of gold rose more than 1% on Monday and is on track for its best monthly gain in 9 years. Seventh, Bank of Russia raises interest rates from 9.5% to 20% to curb expected inflation due to sanctions. Cyber attacks. First, Russia's rapid exclusion could spur cyber attacks. Second, people could be blinded by the cyber attacks of the century when global supply chains are blocked. Third, Ukraine crisis impacts food prices in Europe. The crisis threatens to send prices soaring for European consumers. In bakeries, the anxiety of professionals is increasing as in the last 6 months the cost of all raw materials are skyrocketed from 20 to 70%. Fourth, the situation in Ukraine will generate a hyperinflation of energy and food products, given that the country is an agricultural power with the best fertile land in the world, with extensive trade with China, whose production is linked to the use of natural gas. 5. A cyber attack on NATO could trigger its collective defense clause. Europe. First, Ukraine submits a formal offer to join the European Union. Second, more than 3,000 refugees arrived by ferry to Romania from Ukraine. Third, the European Union will grant temporary protection to Ukrainians fleeing the war. Fourth, the European Union will urgently connect its power grid with that of Ukraine. 5. European industry faces decisions to downsize or shut down due to energy problems. 6. Looters will be shot on sight. Ukrainian mayors won. 7. In 2020 and 2021, a resolution condemning Nazism, neo-Nazism and fascism in all its forms was passed at the UN. The US and Ukraine voted against it. Almost all Europe abstained. The United Nations remained silent, but they forgot to condemn communism as well. 8. A Ukrainian MP publicly declares that they are fighting for the new world order. USA. First, police re-erected a fence around the Capitol ahead of Biden's speech. Second, Trump appeals rally requiring him to testify in New York investigation. Third, New York mayor eliminates face masks in schools. Fourth, confidential Pentagon documents were leaked revealing that they have been operating top-secret biological laboratories in Ukraine. 5. On February 26, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev rushed to remove all documents on 11 Pentagon-funded biological labs from its website. The good news is that they are still archived elsewhere. 6. Solar wind arrives. The Earth is inside a stream of solar wind flowing from a loosely organized clusters of holes in the Sun's atmosphere. No geomagnetic storms are expected at this time. Opinion. Stefan's opinion. Ukraine is the first important step the coalition has taken towards the outside world. Some know why it had to be Ukraine. Many suspect it, and even more add in the dark or can't imagine it. My stomach churns too, just trying to comprehend the bad things that must have happened there. Second, opinion from Spaceship Earth. Everything has a meaning. They are not subtle. They hide everything in plain sight and laugh at the masses for agreeing to everything willingly and without question. Of course, there is a plan, and the movement of the round letter is a highly coordinated operation that has been a long time in the making. Puffness opinion. We are very much looking forward to seeing the radical changes that you all deserve to have in your life. Many events will still have to be weathered before much develops that will help you see the future you wish to enjoy. There are those who are death-bound to make life unbearable for many, and therefore make it difficult to decide to cross the bridge between dimensions. Love is the winner, but it will take time. Hang out in peace and happiness. Find your balance and harmony, and dig out the fearful thoughts. Define that fear and change it to faith. Fourth, impact of banning SWIFT in Russia according to Daniel Lacalle. For Russian banks, the ban of the SWIFT system increases the risk of a bank run, as citizens fear losing their deposits and the collapse of daily operations, even if they start using other alternatives. The move is intended to block the central bank's options to prevent further collapse of its currency against the dollar or the euro. In recent years, the Russian central bank has been reducing its exposure to treasuries and shifting from dollar reserves to the euro and yuan, as well as gold. The Bank of Russia reports that only 22% of its international reserves are dollars, while gold accounts for 23%. 5. General Michael Flynn stated the following, in quotes, "More global economic challenges lie ahead with the price of oil topping $100 per barrel. The stock market opening with large losses, as well as the real potential for significant loss of life, and the international community in complete disarray with feeble attempts to condemn what was entirely avoidable. We face the beginning of another very serious and historic period of tension between competing ideologies. There are failures on both sides, as well as serious violations of previous agreements due to incompetence, arrogance, and ignorance that brought us to this point." Flynn writes, "There are real consequences of war, and for now we must pray that those affected without the ability to decide their fate can survive this extraordinary period of history unfolding on the world stage. What will happen next is an unknown, but Russia and China have just set the new marker for the world order. 6. History repeats itself by Thomas Anderson. Ukraine came into existence after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was a Russian country, Russian area, and Russian government long before that. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was created without registering its borders legally. When the Russian-filled eastern part of Ukraine was dammed off, the population was left jobless and oppressed by an enemy government of the Russians. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.